All right, y'all, it's time to travel from Moscow, Russia, back home to Austin, Texas. Just made it to the airport. As you can see, it is early in the morning and the sun is rising behind me, but I've got all my stuff here and I'm ready to get this travel day started. Made it through all of the security checks here, and now I'm just waiting to board for flight number 1 from Moscow to Istanbul. Alright, I have made it safely to Istanbul and I am racing to get through international transfers to get to my next flight. Luckily, my layover here is only about 3.5 hours. I made a quick stop at Starbucks, as I usually do, and made it to my gate. Now I'm just chilling out, waiting to board. Definitely not looking forward to this 12-hour flight, that is for sure, but I will be happy to get it done. It's interesting because the trip back home is always shorter, but I think having the 4-hour flight first and then the 12-hour one after it is not fun, but it's all part of the journey at the end of the day. I came to sit here for a minute by the window to enjoy the view. Look how pretty it is outside. Such a beautiful day here. Honestly, so far everything has been smooth. International transfers is always a hot mess no matter what. There are just so many people trying to get through. Everyone is basically running all over each other to get through there to get to their next flight. So that part of it's never fun, but I mean, I feel like it went as smooth as it could go. And what I've learned from traveling back and forth is that there are a lot more security checks when you are flying to the United States coming from a country like Russia, as opposed to when you were coming from the United States and flying just about everywhere else in the world. So it's kind of interesting to see the differences, because it's like when you are leaving the US, you basically say, here's my passport, you go through, you know, the regular TSA security and you're good to go. When you are leaving Russia, you go through passport control. Today, I did get one of their grumpiest agents who did not seem like she was having a very good day. So that was an experience, but she did let me through without any additional waits. I was a little concerned because you stand in that line and you're watching all the people that are going before you. And the majority of the people that are going before me all have Russian passports. And this woman was taking her sweet time with every single person that was going through. And on the lines on either side of me, people were just going through left and right, like while she was still on the same person. So I'm sitting there being like, oh no, I'm gonna go in with my US passport and it's gonna take forever. Luckily, it didn't take forever. She seemed to think that surely I had a Russian passport. And I'm like, I assure you, ma'am, I do not. I just have a visa. And also, as you can tell, I do not understand Russian. I am just trying to get through to my flight. So we got through it at the end of the day, but it is always funny. Your experience depends so much on which agent you get paired with. That definitely can feel like it is making or breaking the entire situation. So glad I got through that, and then got through international transfers here. And then there's one more security check that we go through to then get on the plane to go to Dallas. And that is by, I think it's like a private security company that comes in. I know I've only also gone through Dubai, and they have their own version of it. So they basically go through and check all of your bags and everything. And that is also one of those experiences where it can be really easy and smooth, or you can get an agent who's very sassy and nitpicks every single little thing and takes forever. So my fingers are crossed that it will be a good experience. And again, just ready to get on this next flight and to get home and to rest a little bit. Okay, so the good news is that I did make it home safe and sound. The bad news is that I completely failed at recording the rest of that vlog, and for that I apologize. Honestly, the flight from Istanbul to Dallas was a rough one. It was one of those where it was just like an onslaught of things that made it very miserable. It was bad service, a lot of inconsiderate people, and bad food. And so after that first meal, I pretty much spent the rest of the flight sick to my stomach, just trying to make it through. And so I ended up sleeping for less than 30 minutes out of the 12-hour flight, which is not a fun experience, that's for sure. But I did land and everything was very smooth after that. I got through passport control with no issues. I've honestly never had issues going to and from Russia and the US. But what was interesting this time was that when I went to passport control, they did not even look at my passport. They literally just scanned my face, and the guy looks at me and he goes, "Rachel?" And I said, "Yes." And he was like, "Okay, you're good." And that was it. So that's the first time I've ever had them not like look at my passport, look at my boarding pass, and do some sort of verification like that. So it's kind of weird to think that it's just digital and that's it. So after I got through that, I picked up my check bag, and then because I was making my way from Dallas to Austin, I then had to go through and recheck my bag, go through security all over again. And I should mention, because I did mention it the last time around, that when I was talking about having to deal with the grumpy Russian lady in passport control getting out of Russia, I should also mention that I would have actually rather dealt with her than have had to deal with the exceptionally grumpy and very rude, morbidly obese American TSA agents that I had to deal with in Dallas. There's a special group of them in one terminal, and this is the second time that I've had to deal with them, and my dad has had some issues going through and having to deal with them. And these guys are just awful, and it's almost as if they hate their lives so much that they're trying to make everyone else's life hell when you're just trying to get on your flight. By that point, I had been traveling for 20 hours, and I'm like, all I want is to get on this really quick, 1-hour flight home from Dallas to Austin. That's it. That is the last thing on my agenda when it comes to traveling. So now that I'm back to Texas, I got back on Tuesday night, pretty much just spent Wednesday sleeping, resting, and then also working on getting caught up on all things laundry, chores, you name it, trying to get things back up to speed here. I did also want to note that my scheduled trip was only supposed to be about 2.5 weeks to begin with, and that did not change. Even with all of the current events going on, my departure date stayed the same the entire time. And honestly, things were very, very calm there. I saw a lot of people freaking out on social media, and I'm sure there were a lot of people that were there that were concerned, but the majority of the people that I talked to were just kind of waiting to see how things unfolded more than anything. I mean, when you're in a position like that where you hear that there's someone like Yevgeny Prigozhin and that he is marching to the city of Moscow with his forces, there were a lot of people that didn't take it seriously and were just kind of like, we'll see what happens if they get here, what that turns into. And obviously, as they were marching, talks were ongoing and they did come to some sort of an agreement. But while all of that was happening, and before we as the public obviously knew that an agreement was being made, I actually went to the city center in Moscow. I met up with a friend there, and we literally just walked around the area. Red Square was notably shut down just for security reasons, but there were still a lot of people out, a lot of tourists out, and people just kind of out living their regular lives. I mean, it was a Saturday afternoon. You had people out shopping, just kind of living their life as they would on a regular Saturday. And I think that that's really important to note, because so much of the media coverage was acting like things were a lot more dramatic than they were. But I am grateful that things didn't escalate any further. And I think that it really says a lot about Russia when it comes to the way that things were handled. You have someone like Putin who loyalty is everything to him. And so when someone like Prigozhin tries to pull this whole publicity stunt where he's trying to get his way, he's trying to get everyone to look at him, he probably has some Western intelligence people in his ear. And it's like Putin made it very clear from the beginning that he was not going to put up with that, that he was not going to have that. And I think once Putin came out and he made that statement on Saturday morning saying like, nope, we're not doing this, that really kind of set the stage to where if there was concern about what would happen, it wasn't nearly as much as if Putin had stayed quiet, and then people would have started to wonder, okay, wait a second, is he actually going to let Prigozhin come in and replace, you know, members of the military? Is that going to be something that he would actually allow? I'll get into that later, but all of that just to say everything has been very calm and peaceful, and I am very grateful for that. Grateful to be back and to be getting settled in back here. So I look forward to talking to you guys more in the days to come. Thank you so much for all of your support for my latest vlogs. I will be sure to keep them up, and as always, let me know in the comment section what else you want to see, and I will talk to you guys soon.